Welcome to the Wisepreneurs podcast. I'm Nigel Rawlins. The rules of work have changed. This podcast provides the intellectual framework for experienced professionals to navigate this shift and embrace the art of wayfaring, forging your own path to build a meaningful, independent, professional business in your third age. We'll explore how to build this business on the strength of your relationships. We'll cover how to leverage your deep expertise to deliver valuable outcomes, not just sell your time. How to design a work life that protects your cognitive vitality, and how to make technology and AI a powerful, augmenting tool to enhance your work and productivity. My goal isn't to promise success, but to provide the tools, resources, and encouragement for a more considered, purpose-driven venture. Let's begin. My guest today is Amy Alkon, an award-winning investigative science writer who specialises in science help. She does a deep dive into the research, critically evaluating it, and then translating it into everyday language, allowing us to make scientifically informed decisions for the best of our health and well-being. Alkon's new book, her fifth, came out on May the 20th, is called Going Menopostal: What You and Your Doctor Need to Know About the Real Science of Menopause and Perimenopause. The book not only exposes the shocking gap between the scientific evidence and the medical practice standards in women's health, but in all of medicine, as well as how to overcome it and get the evidence-based medical care that we all expect and deserve. Amy, welcome to the Wisepreneurs podcast. Can you tell us where you're from?
I'm from Detroit, Michigan, where the cars come from. And I live in Venice, California. I lived in New York City before, and Venice is fabulous. That's where I'm coming from right now.
That's fantastic. And you've got a dog there, I think, have you?
Yeah, she's a Chinese crested. So basically the wolf from Jack London crossed with My Little Pony. She's 6 pounds and very mirthful and adorable. Very loving.
Fantastic. Now, I'm really intrigued about some of the information I've read about you, or some of the blurbs, that you got started on all of this health advice as one of the advice ladies. Can you tell us more about that part of your life?
I'm a crackpot. What can I say? Live this madcap life in New York. I always have fun. You can make really a lot of things fun, even standing in line at the drugstore. And so with two friends, we had this idea that we would make New Yorkers laugh. We would sit on the street corner in Soho. We had a magazine rack as a table. I made a sign that said free advice presented by the advice ladies, and all these topics. And there were things like, like directions, proper spelling. I didn't have any kind of expertise in anything. And then we thought people would walk past us and laugh. And New York, the sign says free. They'd line up around the block. So, we started giving this advice every weekend. It was wonderful. And then people started asking us questions that were meaningful, where you need to know something. So I read through all of psychology. I've always been this intense reader. And so when I saw Freud just made stuff up crazy. And I discovered Albert Ellis, who's one of the co-founders of cognitive behavioral therapy. His branch is actually better. It's called rational emotive behavior therapy, that basically you're disturbed because you're thinking irrationally. And it comes off the ideas of, he was influenced by the Stoics, Epictetus in particular, who, paraphrasing, said, "It is not events that disturb us, but the view we take of them." So a rational view would be, well, this thing that happened, I prefer it didn't happen, but what am I going to do about it? And not to say things like, it's awful and terrible and horrible and catastrophic, because, you're like a chicken with your head cut off, going hysterical, and that's not going to help anything. It's going to make things worse. And so from this, I started to read science, because I also felt a responsibility. You cannot just give people advice, pull it out of your butt, basically, because it's not right. Our intuitions are often wrong. So I read Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene, and realized that evolutionary science was foundational to all science, and that science is empty without it. And so, these conclusions, well, okay, you came up with this conclusion. Why would this have evolved to be, a feature in our psychology? And so we're basically working now in modern times with an antique psychological operating system. So we're adapted for ancestral era times. And it's sometimes a mismatch with the times we live in. And now people say this thing that makes my head fly off and explode. Evolutionary psychology is just so stories. No, it's not, because nobody likes us in the psych world, the rest of psychology. This is the most rigorous social science research there is. And EvPsych pioneered what's called non-weird research. Weird is Western elite. Oh, I'm not going to remember all the things, but basically testing college students in America is not giving you the substantial truth you need. And so you have to test people across cultures. And David Buss, who does mating research, first did this in 1986 or 1984 with his massive mating study across cultures, where he found that what people prefer, so men preferentially look for women to be attractive, and women preferentially look for men to provide, to be providers. Now, that's not all. The top wants for both men and women are intelligence and kindness. But the evolved preferences have to do with how women have a very high cost from any sex act, potentially, of getting pregnant, and then the guys run off, so you're not able to raise your kid, feed your kid, especially in ancestral times. And then for a man, if you have sex with grandma, well, you're not going to leave any descendants. So men prefer, throughout their lifespan, by the way, men prefer women in their 20s. Doesn't mean they can get them or they want to talk to them, but that's the preference of men. And so this, was where I started. I was giving advice, relationship, love, dating, sex advice in newspapers, science-based. And then I wanted to be as good as possible at making sure the research was valid and reliable. And so in 2007, I met an epidemiologist and biostatistician who is one of the top in the world, co-authored the seminal textbook in the field. He's very generous, and he began coaching me informally in how to vet science. And he also would send me all these articles about the medical fraud and abuse that, devices implanted in people that didn't work and were harmful, and that the research had been buried on that. One of the things I bring out in my book, Going Menopostal, is pointless knee surgeries. So they did fake knee surgery and real knee surgery of the laparoscopic kind. You make a teeny incision. And then for some of the patients, they made the incision and poured some saline on, so it seemed like they'd gotten the surgery. And there was no difference in the pain level between the people who had gotten the fake one and the real one. So this is 2002. 2016, I think it was, my knee was hurting. And I went to my provider, Kaiser Permanente in America, and the orthopedic surgeon or, bone doctor. I can't believe I'm not remembering that right now. But anyway, he said to me, oh, well, if it keeps hurting, we can do laparoscopic surgery. And I thought, well, no, we can't, not on me, because I've read the research. So this is 14 years after that study. If it was 2002, I think it was either 2000 or 2002. And this guy's offering the pointless knee surgery. So I have medical care that has coverage, but if you don't, so you're paying for that. You're laid up. You need physical therapy. You're damaged. Surgery always has risks. And so this is terrible. And this is, what I would see from the articles he sent me. So I ended up, having a different approach to any kind of medical issue. And that's how I approach this. And that's why this book exists. It started with a hot flash, basically.
We've got a very different system of medical care in Australia. You can have private medical care. It gives you extras, but we have free medical care. So we can go to a local doctor. We may have to pay a gap fee, but if we have an accident, we're straight into hospital and costs nothing. We're very, very lucky here, but we could have the same issue in terms of medical knowledge.
Oh, you definitely do, because this is medicine around the world. It's med schools, medical education, medical institutions. They are at fault here. When I started the book, I was angry at doctors, and I still am. I'm getting some really, just absurdly unscientific care through Kaiser Permanente. Right now, I have to fight and fight. It's ridiculous, because I know the science and these doctors don't. The big secret of gynecology departments around the world is that these doctors, they're mostly baby doctors. They have no training or expertise in menopause and perimenopause. And so it is against medical ethics for them to treat you. It's really terrible. And this is gynecology as usual. So they just have them treat you. They should refer you to someone who's an expert, but there really are no experts. And then here in America, the ones who say they're experts, like this, there's a Dr. Iser who's just doesn't even show up for appointments with me. It's so amazing. You get ghosted by your doctor. Like twice, you sit there, telemed. I'm sitting at my computer, hour. I leave it on all day on Zoom. She never shows. Then the next time, how do I get care? It's crazy, but she's supposedly their menopause expert. I understand why she doesn't want to show up to appointments with me, because when doctors say something about menopause or perimenopause science, I have spent 8 years sitting in this chair where I am right now, doing this deep dive into the research and the physiology. I had to learn endocrinology. I had a British med school textbook pinned all over my walls in my bedroom. And then I'd take the pages down, put up more pages, learn them. And so doctors don't learn this deeply. So I know more than they do. They'll say these things to me that are just unscientific and wrong. And so, this is the betrayal, and patients don't know because they don't know when doctors are wrong. For example, I had a doctor say to me, I have what's called high sex hormone binding globulin. This inactivates much of the estrogen that I take. So I get between that and I have a liver enzyme called this. We have a liver enzyme, the CYP3A4 liver enzyme. In me, I'm a rapid metabolizer. I had pharmacogenetics done, which is genetic testing to see how your body and drugs react, your genetic makeup, how that influences how you metabolize drugs. And so I get less than half the estrogen I take. And then I have ADHD. I'm diagnosed with that. And, whether it's the bright lines in psychiatry are another thing I take issue with, like, oh, you have this single disorder. You have to be called disordered. I'm not disordered. I just, untidy. But my brain is really something I love and appreciate because I put together these connections that other people wouldn't. But so you need to be diagnosed as disordered in order to get drugs. And so wait, where was I going with all of this? Oh, so that I take modafinil, which is this drug that they came up with for airline pilots to stay awake. For me, I take amphetamines and modafinil. I can take a nap. It slows me down so I can focus. And so modafinil, though, it decreases active estradiol by 11 to 18%. So I take this estrogen, my body basically takes it and throws it out the window. And so these doctors, she and the other ones, they say, oh, we don't want to give you a super physiologic dose. Okay, so I take 1 milligram of Climera. It's a transdermal estradiol. I have a patch, a sticker on my butt. Super physiologic means you take way too much. I'm not looking to replicate myself as a fertile young woman. I'm 61. But when I take that dose, I get half of what other women take. And you see it, the pharmaceutical minimum for putting it on your butt is 71. My estrogen tests out to 45. And that's not even free estradiol, it's just total. Free estradiol, mine's like in the tank. So what I want is to take a double dose so I can get a normal dose. Not super, but they call this super physiologic. And then they also say, oh, we're afraid you have heart disease risk. Well, no, I don't. If you look at my metabolic health in total, you would know that. But, I have high LDL because I eat a carnivore diet. And so this doesn't mean you have unhealthy LDL. Your body, you're taking a lot of saturated fat, so you're clearing a lot. I have actually these sort of superhero metabolic stats of so good for heart disease, a good ratio of triglycerides to HDL, which is the most determinant factor. You can look at that and know if if you have heart disease pretty much. My triglycerides are 30. My HDL is 79. And so a good ratio is 4. Mine's 0.4. C-reactive protein, 1 is good. Mine's 0.3. That measures inflammation in your body. So all of my stats, they're stellar. They're like extraordinary, off the charts. And these people who don't know anything about heart disease, medicine is very unscientific. They're making all these, basically coming up with fiction about my medical situation. So I'm having to fight and fight and fight. It's truly terrible. I just want to get into it because I realize I didn't mention this. There are 3 big myths about our medical care that we believe. One is that doctors make decisions according to scientific evidence and that they can read and evaluate it. The other is that they're trained in diagnostic reasoning. And the third is that they can properly assess risk. And none of those are the case. Doctors don't learn to read research in med school. They're not trained to do it. They don't know how to do it. And they don't have time to do it at a medical provider like mine, Kaiser Permanente, where they're seeing patients every 20 minutes and have electronic medical record keeping requirements. So basically, I put out my book, Going Menopostal, because other women need to have this information that I have that I can use to drive my care, and they don't. And really, we need this for every area. My friends Gary Taubes and Nina Teicholz have done this for low carb, and there are others too. But every area of medicine needs some kind of nerd like me, crazy scientific mole rat, dig through the research for 8 years and put out a book saying, here's what it is, because there is no area of medicine that is evidence-based. And that sounds crazy, but it's true.
What I'm hearing is you have an amazing knowledge of how your body works. And I think we're probably not advanced like that. I think you're able to get a lot more testing done in America with your blood work and stuff like that than we do here. For us to get that amount of testing, we'd have to go to our local GP and then find general practitioner and then find a place that will test that blood. I think you've got a lot more services in America, but you have an amazing knowledge of your physiology and how your body works, and also the intellectual power to understand what that all means.
Thank you. But I want to say, I also understand, medicine across the disciplines, and this makes me different from doctors. So with friends, I do this all the time. I look at people's labs, the lab tests here, and I will evaluate them and tell them what things really mean, because the doctors don't know. It's really terrible, and I'll have to correct, the errors in the labs, and then the things they want to prescribe. It's truly terrible. And so, but you need to be able to read the research. I had a corneal endothelium transplant for my eye, and the medication they give in that field, throughout the field, they give people medication with preservatives. They're probably going to ban them soon in Europe. They begin destroying the corneal endothelium and goblet cells in a matter of days. Sorry, epithelium, not endothelium. And and you can get drugs that don't have the preservatives. So instead of afloxacin, you can take moxifloxacin, which these names, they kill me, which is a generic, about the same price, and just doesn't have the thing that destroys your eyes. This is an antibacterial. So, this is every area. It's very disturbing.
And yet the average person would have no knowledge or even think about it because they trust the doctor. Okay, your book, Going Menopostal, obviously you've had that experience and you've done the research, but what would you say is the single most important truth that women need to understand to begin reclaiming their health?
I'm always bad at these ranked things. Like, what's your favorite movie? I immediately have no idea.
Oh, where do women start? The book Menopostal. It's come from your deep experience.
Oh, no, this isn't, I have to correct you. It's not my experience. I mean, I experienced this, but no, it's from science. What I did is look at the science, things that don't affect me. In fact, my first pass of the book, I didn't have any chapters on cardiology because I don't have problems in that area. And I was like, hello, I said, a bad word, insert bad word here, person. This is not okay. Go dive into that. And that was a big deal, to learn cardiology for a book. But I do know it. I can give med school lectures now. So this is a thing where it's across the board science. And this is why there isn't some kind of single thing to do. There are two things. We talked about this before, where I figure out the most powerful and efficient ways to eat and exercise. But dealing with the symptoms of perimenopause, especially, and menopause, they're very important because they're not just disturbing, they're indications of harm going on in your body that you need to be protected from. So I can if you want me to talk about the diet and exercise thing, I can, but I want to make sure we deal with the symptoms and how to treat them.
Yes, well, let's deal with the symptoms and how to treat them. I mean, at what age for women does I've forgotten.
Perimenopause.
Well, at what age does the indications and the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause? So let's talk some of those so that women, because one of the things you say is that when you get these things, you go, oh, what's going on? And go to a doctor, and then you're in the hands of the doctor. So what are the first indications that they need to know? At what age does this start? Because, I've got a 41-year-old daughter. My wife's got 3 daughters in their 40s. At what age does this start to appear? And then what do they do? How do they take control and have some sort of agency in their healthcare? And then I'd love to talk to you about the exercise and diet and stuff like that.
So women can start in their late 30s or even at 35. Some women do, but what's more normal is in the 40s. And so perimenopause is the transition stage to menopause. It lasts 3 to 10 years. And it lasts longer than people know. And then the international organizations recognize, it's not just the doctors getting it wrong, researchers too. It's so disturbing. So there's a thing called STRAW. It's the strategic, I'm going to get it wrong.
Right.
Anyway, what they came up with is that you are in perimenopause when your periods start to become irregular, variable by 7 or more days. And so, this is in length I'm talking about. And so, well, yeah, that's true. But what happens is it excludes all these symptoms that happened before that. This is really terrible. And the first part of my book, this incredible researcher, Geraldine Pryor, she's a doctor. She's retired from that now, treating patients, but also a researcher, an endocrinologist, a doctor. They study hormones. She really worked very fiercely to have perimenopause recognized for the unique hormonal state it is, properly with the hormones, what really goes on properly recognized, and to have progesterone recognized. That's a second hormone, estrogen's partner in the menstrual cycle, the second phase hormone, to have that recognized for the healthy and protective hormone it is, and for how it goes missing for a lot of women in perimenopause, causing the symptoms. So what she has come up with, she and her colleagues, is a list of 9 changes that women go through. And if you have 3 out of 9 of these, I can tell you what they are. These are things where it's new onset. So you have heavier or longer menstrual flow, and then you have shorter menstrual cycle lengths, maybe 25 or fewer days, breasts that are more swollen or sore or lumpy. I mean, the worst thing is it's called premenstrual syndrome. You start to feel like it's like always menstrual syndrome. It's terrible. Waking up mid-sleep when that wasn't an issue previously, new onset of night sweats, more frequent or new migraine headaches, more frequent mood swings, newer, more frequent mood swings, and then notable weight gain where you haven't changed your diet or exercise or anything. And so these can bother you for several years before you get any kind of, these variable periods that this organization talks about. And this is terrible because it leaves women with the most disturbing emotion, uncertainty. This is very disturbing for us. And you have no idea, what are all these symptoms? Why is everything in you going wrong? I felt like I was falling apart. Like, this is it. Okay. You had, 40 some good years, and now, it's over. You're an old woman. You're in pain. You're dizzy. I got car sickness in my 40s. I had terrible, terrible symptoms. I was sleepless after being an expert champion sleeper from way back. I'm not anymore, but I would go to bed at 11, like someone hit me with a cast iron frying pan, and wake up at 6. And if you didn't launch a nuclear warhead into my yard, and then my dog didn't start barking, bloody murder, I would be asleep that whole time. And then I started waking up 5 or 6 times a night. You get brain fog. Your brain becomes filled with neural trash because you're not having the cerebral spinal fluid wash through, which you need to have deep sleep for. It was really terrible. And when you don't know what that is, you search for diagnoses. It might take a drug or get a diagnosis that's not really real. It's really terrible.
So what do they do about it?
So in perimenopause, what women need to do, and this is in my book, it's called quantitative basal temperature testing. It comes from a researcher, Rudy Waldman, in the 70s. And then Geraldine Pryor, the endocrinologist from UBC, and her colleagues turned this into this validated form of testing. It's different than the basal thermometer testing on your phone, which, by the way, is wrong. It's based on a 28-day menstrual cycle, which actually isn't the case. It's so horrible. They tell women, oh, you want to have a baby? Use our app. Oh, no, it's wrong. I mean, it's hideous. So what you do is you measure your first morning temperature every day, for a month. Ideally, you do it for a few months because you want to see, and this is in the book, if your temperature is rising and rising for the correct amount of days to indicate that you're making progesterone. And what happens in perimenopause is that your estrogen level is going to be fine. You're unless you have some kind of disease where you don't make enough estrogen. But if you don't ovulate, this is where the egg sac ruptures and the egg is released. If that doesn't happen, the litter left over from when it does rupture is not there. This is called the corpus luteum. It's this yellow waxy stuff, and progesterone is made from that. And so you must be ovulating. And if you're not making progesterone, which is really important because not only does a lack of progesterone cause symptoms, including the horrible mental health symptoms I had, where you're just like rims on the highway in a freeway chase. We have these here in California a lot. That's how you feel mental health wise. You're a hate-filled, rage-filled, horrible person. And then you feel ashamed because why are you this horrible person all of a sudden? It's because you're wired all the time. It's horrible. And so, if you don't ovulate, you're not making that progesterone to keep you calm, to help you sleep. It's also very unhealthy because progesterone does important jobs in the breast and the endometrium, the uterine lining. In the breast, it's basically like a school principal. It wrangles the delinquents. So you have generic cells in the breast, and these cells, progesterone makes them differentiate, which is specialized to do their job as breast cells. It makes them, become breast cells, basically. So then they're doing breast cell work and they're not just dividing wildly and becoming cancer. And then in the endometrium, progesterone stops what's called hyperplasia, which is estrogen-driven cell overgrowth. These are partners. If you don't have the partner to estrogen, you're in trouble. Estrogen does some wonderful things. Both are necessary. But doctors give estrogen in perimenopause thinking this is a solution because it is very powerful for hot flashes, but so is progesterone. You don't want to take estrogen if you're having what happens in perimenopause, which doctors don't realize. Doctors think of perimenopause as menopause light, like it's just like sand in an hourglass. Oh, it's just petering out. My estrogen's petering out. It's not what happens. Estrogen spikes and dives sometimes to 3 times the level in a fertile woman. And the problem is the diving. This causes withdrawal-like symptoms, like you're a junkie, and it's horrible. So if you're withdrawing from drugs, you end up having hot flashes and all these symptoms people do in menopause. Oh, and I have to say about the word junkie, Amy Dresner edited much of the book. She wrote My Fair Junkie, so I'm allowed to use that word. It's considered on PC. But her book, My Fair Junkie, is fantastic, so I recommend that too. Anyway, I was like, oh no, I'll be canceled now. That's our world. Yeah, I'm very on PC. I just try to catch myself. So, this is very important that you have this. And progesterone is really important for bones, your cardiovascular system, and the time to take estrogen, which is also protective. It's a big lie from the Women's Health Initiative study that estrogen causes cancer. I'll tell you why that is. But if you take estrogen as a healthy woman who does not have plaque progression, and I tell you how to check for that in my book, there are tests you can have. And, so in America, I order tests you can get them from a lab independently. They're not necessarily always, cheap. But there are cheaper labs and, so I need to sometimes do that when a doctor won't test me for something or when I need to know without letting them know what the level is, because I practice defensive patienting, which is different. Defensive medicine is when a doctor is ignorant and undertreats you or overtreats you because of it, because their priority is seeing that they don't get sued or lose their license. So for me, what I do is I know the way doctors will interpret things, and I just need what I need. And I know how to interpret things, and I don't want to, fall prey to their misconceptions. So I just look at things myself to see where things are. So anyway, I got a little off track there, but estrogen right after menopause is healthy and protective, and you can take it throughout your lifespan. You should be monitored, but this is an important change that they made. Now, I had the head of Kaiser Gynecology. This is my big provider in Los Angeles. She tells me, I'm on the phone with her because my guy, unfortunately, is left. I really love my gynecologist. He's a man, because I'm not like those people who are like, if my cancer doctor hasn't had a glioma, I'm not going to him. Like, I don't require someone to have a vagina to treat me, just to be good and listen. Anyway, I have all these substitute gynecologists who are all uninformed about menopause and perimenopause, every one of them, including the expert one, quote unquote. She was choosing the formulary, the drug formulary for menopause and perimenopause, tells me that estrogen causes cancer and all these things. This is 2002 research that was discredited in 2004. This is 2025. Tells me, oh, cancer, Alzheimer's, all these things. Well, no. And then she said, you should taper at 60. I'm 61. Okay, no, this is also discredited. And so she tells me she reads the science. And I know doctors don't and can't read it. And I made the mistake because I'm so upset about them all denying me the level of estrogen I need, which I've since gotten, had to fight huge battles to do it. She was telling me this stuff. If she had read the science at all, she would know, because it's been out there. There have been 2013, there was a very definitive paper. Anyway, say that she just read the Menopause Society bulletins, which sort of digest all the science and say, here's what you do. These are our practice bulletins. 2017, 2022. It was NAMS, North American Menopause Society, in 2017 and 2022. It's now Menopause Society. They both say, look, we revise this. There's no stopping rule. Monitor your patients, make decisions based on individual health and risk. I'm so metabolically healthy. I'm as likely to die of a heart attack as I am to be kicked in the knee by a unicorn. Anybody who says I have heart disease, I mean, it's like, they're like, it's idiotic, and that's because the lipid hypothesis, this idea that, you eat a steak and you're going to keel over. No, this is wrong. I eat a carnivore diet. I eat only fish and meat and eggs, and I eat butter all day. And, I have stellar metabolic health, very low inflammation, no insulin resistance. We can talk about that with the diet stuff. But so this doctor, if I did what she said, you need estrogen at age 79 when you break bones to be protecting your bones. It's the strongest protector of bones. And these bone drugs for osteoporosis they give, they are horrible. They benefit the drug company, not patients. They make your bones more brittle and micro-cracked within 3 years. And what they do, they don't make your bone healthy. They say, oh, bone density, this is a BS measure. Bone density is how much bone stuff do you have? Well, they do that by keeping the old bone the out of, like, beyond its prime bone you should get rid of. They hang on to that. Well, how fantastic. So I have a house and it's wood, except that all the wood is eaten by termites. And so the house is going to fall down. It doesn't matter that it's still, great, we got wood walls. Yes, they're compromised. And this is a horrible state medicine's in. Doctors have no idea. And what you need is bone quality and strength. And it needs to be resilient and not brittle. And these are the things that are fostered by the right kind of exercise. So this is a kind of betrayal. All of medicine most of our medical care is not scientific. As the U.S. National Academy of Medicine said, that most of our medical care, this is in the U.S., but I'm sure it's, globally with some exceptions, that most of our medical care is not based or supported by adequate evidence. They're not saying excellent evidence or rigorous evidence or fantastic evidence, just adequate. And this is the state of things, and it's really terrible. And patients are harmed by this. And so the reason I wrote this book, since I was an advice columnist for many years, what I do that other people don't do is that I make sure the advice is realistic. So all these doctors with menopause books out, some better and some really not very good. And they tell you, here's the science. Well, fantastic. Go to your doctor. I want this care. No, like, they're the gatekeepers. So what you need are fail-safes that I provide in this book. Look, here are legitimate medical data you can collect from your own body, like, doing the first morning temperature taking, the quantitative basal temperature taking, to go to your doctor and say, look, I'm not making progesterone. This is very unhealthy. And you can screenshot some stuff from my book so you have it there with you. Oh, breast not protected. Endometrium not protected. Very bad. I can't. Oh, so the big thing, I can't sleep is the best. I mean, not that I tell people to lie, but you probably are not sleeping if you're having this problem. That, I can't sleep is a really important complaint, because what are they going to say? Tough, don't sleep then? You need sleep you die without sleep, and you can't function without sleep. And so many women, these vital, important, powerful, accomplished professional women, they lose their power at work, to function even, and they don't know it's perimenopause, and other people don't. They think they're lazy or drunk, or, something's wrong with them in some kind of pernicious way. And, they should be treated like we treat people with diabetes. Like, someone tells you have diabetes, you might offer to drive them to dialysis. You're not going to talk behind their back and try to get them fired. This is the stuff that goes on because of the ignorance.
It's my biggest worry. We have intelligent women and this is occurring to them, and they're not getting the advice or the help that they need. So let's go a little bit back. With the perimenopause, did you say you need to have progesterone in addition to?
You shouldn't take estrogen. This is from Geraldine Pryor, the UBC endocrinologist, and I agree with her. Some women can take it at the end, but at the end of perimenopause, and perimenopause officially ends, it's 12 months without a period means you're in menopause, but like at 11 months and 16 days, if you get clock resets, another year. And this is important. You need to know when you're in menopause, because if you're bleeding in menopause, this is a thing that requires immediate medical attention. And it can be nothing. It's not always something. It's often not anything. I had this problem, and sorry, you're a guy, but I'm going to just tell the story. So I'm bleeding, and I think, okay, I'm a progesterone factory. Now, in America, they give 100 or 200 milligrams for no scientific reason, by the way. It kills me. So in France, they give 300 milligrams of oral micronized progesterone. This is an FDA-approved drug here in America. You need to not get it off the internet or use a cream, because it's not going to protect your endometrium and your breasts. It's not going to give you an adequate amount to make your symptoms go away. You need to get the actual drug. And we have telemed here, and you can do it. If you have a recalcitrant doctor, you can use telemedicine to get it. And I, wholly recommend that. But oral micronized progesterone, don't get a drug made in India. They're not safe. And so the estrogen, you have estrogen. And so, and your estrogen's probably spiking. And if you're symptomatic, that's probably making you very sick, that estrogen spiking plus a lack of progesterone. And so taking more of the thing you're already being overdosed on by your body, you're going to make yourself sicker. If I had taken estrogen, I think it might have killed me. I was so sick in perimenopause. There are about 15% of us who have just the worst symptoms, where I started getting car sick in my 40s, and I couldn't go. I'm in Venice. Santa Monica's like right next door. I couldn't go from Venice to Santa Monica. I actually threw up in my shoes. And so, you should drive and that'll help. The worst, take Dramamine. Wow, really? I hadn't figured that out. And also, should I kill a family of 5 because I'm going to fall asleep behind the wheel? Thanks. These are great solutions. And progesterone actually really helped. Now, it's an anecdote. It's a story from Amy Alkon alone. It's not valid scientific testing, but this was a thing I accidentally discovered. And I speculate in the book why this is related to histamines, which cause swelling. And so the progesterone was enormously helpful for this. And for the other symptoms, my symptoms, just the sleep alone. So I didn't sleep perfectly anymore, but I wake up maybe once or twice a night, and then I would go right back to sleep. It wasn't like before where I'd wake up, thrash around. You try every form of voodoo. Like if I just sleep on this side, or if I eat this, or if I drink this, or if my feet are hot, my feet are cold, you will try anything. And I tried every supplement that had any kind of scientific validation behind it for sleep, and none of them work. Oh, and the best is when they say there's research on, it's called CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. Okay, I'm not sleeping. I'm not having problems sleeping because I'm irrational. And sleep hygiene, my bedroom is it's dark like a tank. The windows have black stuff over them. I use a blindfold. And then, so I have what I call a Jufro. I have red hair, but it's basically I have black hair, so white Jew. And so my black friends, my black girlfriends, they direct my hair care. I wear a satin bonnet like black women do to sleep, so my hair doesn't get all frizzed up on the pillow. And I pull that over my eyes. And I have the headphones on, for noise canceling. Nothing worked. It's horrible, and so the progesterone was the thing that gave me my sleep back. And then the thing that was important from that was not having the brain fog, because I would wake up and I was useless. My sharp brain was gone. And this is an incredible thing. It's so painful. And these women who are in work environments, you couldn't see what I was going through, but you're on display in a workplace. Oh, in fact, I was on display. I forgot about this. I volunteer as a mediator. I'm certified under California law, Dispute Resolution Act. I'm a senior, very expert mediator. I give talks on how to improve mediation through behavioral science. It was the most uncomfortable, horrible thing. I ended up having a fan in our office, a tower fan that was a shared fan for the whole floor of City Hall. Guess whose fan that was? You can tear that fan out of my cold dead hand, out of my actually very hot dead hands. That was my fan, my baby, like my boyfriend at my desk, my cubicle. And then, you have this another thing, and I'll just, even though you're a guy, you're cool and you're from Australia. So, heavy flow. When Darylyn Pryor talks about heavy flow, and there are ways to manage this that doctors don't know, and they do not include surgery, because that doesn't make physiological sense. I can get into why that is. Oh my God, I would have to go to the bathroom every 20 minutes or even less. And the bathroom for women was on another floor. You'd take an elevator, and you could take the stairs, but then you're crossing your legs and hopping. Horrible. And so women go through this stuff. How do you have a meeting? You're in a meeting and you're sweating from hot flashes. You're like, uh-oh, there's a shining in my pants, the elevator scene. All this stuff impedes you at work, and you become the woman with superpowers becomes this woman just besieged by perimenopause. And, understanding it, using the drugs, and then also using methods like ibuprofen decreases the bleeding. And we don't know this, and getting tested for, getting your iron level tested, getting thyroid tested. These are recommendations of Darylyn Pryor that I put in the book. She's really great on all of this. And these things, women need to know them, and your doctor should tell you this stuff. You shouldn't need Amy Alkon. I should writing something else, or off in an opium den or something like that, not spending 8 years nervously digging through science, because I have to get it right. I had the book fact checked by researchers, and I tell them, hand me my ass, be mean to me, tell me I'm an idiot, because the most important thing was not putting anything in the book that wasn't, based in solid evidence. And there were things I took out. Scott Alexander, who's a psychiatrist, he questioned some of the stuff I wrote on antidepressants. And I thought, yeah, he's right. I want to know, if you're writing this kind of stuff, you better be really humble and just, accept it and admit it when someone tells you you're full of, whatever. I don't know if I can say that, but
you can.
Okay.
It's Australia.
Yeah, right. Where men are and sheep are nervous. That's our quote from when I worked at Ogilvy, New York. Yeah, that was my favorite thing about Australians.
What we're saying is that they need progesterone. And you also mentioned that there's different types of progesterone when they're perimenopause. But when they are in menopause after the 12 months, period 3, they do need estrogen.
Okay, when you said different kinds, you do not want to take anything but you guys probably have a drug agency there, the approved real medical drug that providers give. You must get that. If you go through telemedicine, you have to get that validated drug. The creams on the internet, these things that they're these gynecologists who are influencers, so gross. They sell these drugs, and I see them. They're not safe to take, and they're just scams. You can get drugs and supplements. I use a site called Consumer Lab. It's a membership site. You could join from somewhere else. I think it's maybe $50. So worthwhile, because what I do is I find the cheapest good supplement, because that's a Wild West area. But using any kind of cream, no, please don't. You put yourself at risk of cancer. Go through the pain in the ass thing of telemed or whatever. And so what Amy Dresner, I mentioned before, did, her doctor, and this is so crazy, her doctor would only give her 100 milligrams of oral micronized progesterone, not enough for her symptoms, the hot flashes, and then 200 was the highest she would go. And she tells Amy, get some kind of cream from the homeopathic pharmacy. Oh my God. First of all, homeopathy is just bullshit. No, I can say bad words here. It's based on this idea of let's put less than a molecule of the stuff in the thing and sell it to you. And it's why don't you just burn your money? Because then you have to go to the drugstore. It's a little faster. It's worthless. And people end up doing that instead of getting meaningful care they need. And so with Amy, I put this story in the book because she had this very funny joke about this, where she said that right now I could get any illegal drug I wanted: meth, oxy, molly, meet some dealer or Jack in the Box who'd hand it through the window of his '87 Honda. But progesterone, this drug made of yams, forget you, lady, can't score you that. That was the irony. This legal FDA-approved drug she couldn't get. And so she then goes through telemedicine, and then she texts me the photo of the drug, and I see it. It's from this Indian pharmacy, generic version from India. And so I had just finished reading a colleague's book, Bottle of Lies. It's science journalist Catherine Eben. She did this great expose on how corrupt the Indian pharmaceutical industry is, basically killing patients around the globe with tainted versions of generics. And I said, you cannot take this. So she had to get another one. and, get one from America. And you just need to call and make sure, where is your drug coming from before you get it, and just don't get it from India or China. The others may not be great either, but they're going to be better, because what happens here with our FDA is that they inspect the production facilities in America, and they just show up. In India, they're like, we'll be there in a couple of weeks, so can you hide all the stuff, the contaminated crap? I mean, it's incredible. And still they were able to find this out. So this is, this some of the stuff that doctors don't know, and they also don't know about, when generics don't work. Sometimes they don't work. I have a chapter on that too. Very important, how to swap your drug out if you get a generic that's not working. Because they can be subpotent or super potent. And it's pernicious with drugs like Wellbutrin, where the extended release generic, it released the drug so fast that people committed suicide. When you get a generic, they have the same substance as the active ingredient, but what they can't find out, this proprietary, is how are the inactive ingredients formulated, and is our drug going to react the same way? And it often doesn't, and to terrible effects.
Now, one of the big concerns, you've mentioned it, that there's this fear of getting cancer if you're taking estrogen. So when you're in menopause, you're suggesting they do take estrogen?
Oh, yes. Okay. So this cancer fear, this is based on the Fraudulent Women's Health Initiative study from 2002. And I can talk about breast cancer risks. I have a whole chapter on that. But I want to say estrogen. So there are different types of estrogen. And the Women's Health Initiative study, they give conjugated equine estrogen. So it's from horse pee. And so that has some substances in it that are not native to the human body. And so what I take, and what appears to be the safest, is to take bioidentical estradiol. That's the name of that's estrogen is sort of the class, and then estradiol is the drug that you're taking. That's the menstrual cycle hormone. So the bioidentical, FDA approved. It's the same molecule as the estrogen in your body. And then you take that transdermal estrogen. And what that means, it's a sticker. There are also creams, but I think that the patch, the sticker, is the most effective way to get a stable dose. And you're also not getting on things. So, maybe wiping on your kid, on your son to grow boobs. Same thing with testosterone creams and things like that. And so transdermal estrogen patch, taken as a healthy woman right after going into menopause at 12 months without a period, that is safe and protective throughout your lifespan. You have to get tested. I give you the test in the book, which test to get to see that you don't have heart disease risk. And these are not the ones your doctor gives. So they'll give a test for something called APOB to see if you're unhealthy. And this test, independent of anything else, it doesn't tell you what you need to know. You need to get APOA1 also tested and look at the ratio to see whether you have risk. I mean, it is really, all of this is medicine, terrible. And Black and other women of color, they have some different physiological, metrics, and these are not attended to. And one of the things my book does that I'm very proud of, I have 23 pages on the unique, physiology of Black women and other women of color, where it makes a difference. Black women have very high, they have a lot of metabolic unhealth problems. And so, there's certain substances like LPA, lipoprotein A, that can be very elevated. And it's really vital to have these tested, to have Black women looked at metabolically. For example, they have much lower triglycerides, like 20% lower triglycerides, and I think 17% higher HDL, if I'm remembering correctly. It's about those ranges. And so in a patient population with metabolic health issues, very severe metabolic health issues in general, you can miss heart disease in a Black woman if you go by white people standards. And we test, like in Jews, we test Jews for Tay-Sachs disease, a birth defect, and we test Blacks for sickle cell. We don't test Blacks for Tay-Sachs disease because they're not from Poland. Some of us are ancestry. I'm, of course, originally from, one of the 12 tribes in Israel, but we, got chased out. This is really important. And Hispanic women, this invasive form of breast cancer, if your name is Lopez or Rodriguez, or you might be Hispanic, we should test you and look at you in a special way to make sure that this isn't an issue for you, and look at you more than we would another woman who doesn't have that risk level. So these are some of the things that happen. So the transdermal, you take this, I use a patch that's a once a week patch. There's some that are twice a week. And, would start out, try a lower dose and see what works. But I started out at 0.035. It's milligrams of, the point is important, 0.035. And then I went up, now I'm at 1, and I'm going to need 2. I have 2 on right now. I fought this battle with Kaiser, all these doctors who don't know anything, to get the 2. And I really feel the difference. And that's not valid science, but memory is affected. So I have ADHD. And so people with ADHD have low dopamine and norepinephrine normally, and I take Adderall, modafinil, and I started to feel like they weren't working in menopause. And also, I'm in this extreme nerd meetup group with all these, they're all mostly software engineers, quantum physicists. They work at SpaceX. They're amazing. And so we debate homework. We have homework every week, and we count off to go into groups. And I was like, and it's not like count to 300, 1, 2, 3 sometimes. And I would have to ask Eric sitting next to me, what's your number? Because I would say my number and I would forget. I mean, this is horrible. Oh, one funny story from that. So Vishal, who runs our group, I say to Vishal, we have a party, and I say, Vishal, I would just want to let you know that, I probably have better memory after Tuesday because I'm going to start estrogen. And he said, that's the 5th time you told me tonight. I love that. And so this is what women are being denied by these doctors, going by the 2002 discredited research. I mean, it's horrible. And I have to say, when this came out, I wasn't near menopause. So it wasn't really something I was worried about or anything, but I sort of got the thing like, oh, estrogen sounds horrible. Estrogen is Satan. I'm never taking it. Okay, this isn't scientific. So I start doing this book with this belief, and I start reading the studies, and like, you ass, no, you're completely wrong. And I admit that in the book because I want people to know science is not about being right. It's about looking for, the most evidence-based facts you can find. And then when you see that you've been wrong, to revise your views and publicly state them. And it should be a point of pride to say, I was wrong. And to say, look, this is better. And this is, the evidence says this. There's something I just saw that, oh, I know, testosterone. I've changed my mind on that. I have to ask the doctor who ghosted me. She's ghosted me for 2 appointments. I have the screenshots here. I have to send to some grievance person at Kaiser, and so she's the one who told me to take testosterone because I have low free testosterone because of my carnivore diet, raising sex hormone binding globulin, which basically grabs the testosterone and goes like, whoosh, out the window. Bye. You don't get it. So I had been using a supplement called DHEA that I validated through Consumer Lab because I had seen that there wasn't longitudinal research, so long-term studies validating the safety of testosterone for breast cancer risk and cardiovascular risk. And since I first looked at that, because I do this whole big book, in the book I say, we don't really know, but I looked this up and I see that like 2022, there are some studies. So the breast cancer risk seems to be answered to the satisfaction of like, yes, you can take this. And I think cardiovascular also will be like that. So there may be some risk, but it's the less risk that I'm putting myself in by using a very high amount of DHEA. So I'm harming myself that way, and it's not correcting the testosterone level. And so I have an email to go to her saying, look, you're right about this, and I want to take this, but here's the problem. Medicine is so terrible. We patients are so betrayed. So I call because I have to tell doctors what to prescribe because I know the science on a level they don't. So men have skin that is 20 to 25% thicker than women, and you have more sebum, more oil. So a drug that you put on skin for men, you can't just, throw that on a woman because it's not going to be reacting correctly. She might get an overdose. And also for men, the dose you take as a man is huge compared. We take a minuscule dose. So I need to take 0.1875 milligrams a day, twice a day, a teeny amount. So, I call Kaiser and they say, oh, we're just going to give you the androgel for men. And you have to just you divide it from the package. Okay, this is like a package of lotion. How do I, 0.187, how do I do that? And, and the answer is you can't. And so they're having patients, Kaiser Permanente, big medical care. I mean, it's multi-state, nonprofit, huge. They're having patients take this unvalidated amount. Like it can vary day to day. This is horrible and damaging. You don't want to get too much testosterone. you need what you need. You can, so as a woman, you would take between 5 and 10 milligrams. So I'm conservative. I know I'm low, so I think I need more than 5, but I wouldn't start at 10. I would start at 7.5. That's where this 0.1875 gets me. And so what they need to do is to compound it. You go to a compounding pharmacy. You need to go to an accredited one. They mix this up for you. You get individual, they're called oral syringes. They're not oral, but they're the dose you need. And you squeeze that out into your skin. So you're getting exactly what you need in the kind that is, it's cream made for a woman and not for a man. And Kaiser, every patient, this is like medroxyprogesterone acetate. When the reason I did this book, so I read the science. I don't go to the doctor, without knowing exactly what's wrong and what to do, because I can't trust really. I have a psychiatrist who's evidence-based. He's the only one. He's a fantastic doctor. I'm so grateful for him. But so I read the research and I see this huge gap between the evidence and the practice standards, and that they give medroxyprogesterone acetate, the synthetic knockoff of progesterone, instead of progesterone. And in fact, researchers confuse the two, and they say progesterone causes cancer. It does not. It's protective. And I'll get into the breast cancer risk about both estrogen and progesterone, because there's real wonderful receptor research that, gave me an answer of sorts at the end of the breast cancer chapter. But medroxyprogesterone acetate binds with the wrong receptor in the breast, increasing your breast cancer risk, the glucocorticoid stress receptor risk, instead of preferentially binding with the progesterone receptor, the correct receptor. And it is harmful to your cardiovascular system and your brain. So wait, I'm going to kill my brain, and not kill them, but I'm going to harm them and like increase my breast cancer risk. No, I want progesterone. I had to fight 3 battles, armed with science, denied, and then finally I got it, to get the progesterone I need, to get it covered and get the amount I need, which is the amount given in France. And you take 300 milligrams at night because it makes you drowsy. Drowsy is good at night. And then, and the reason for this is you don't know how you metabolize drugs. And so you need this amount to be safe for your endometrium and breast, to make sure you're protected, that estrogen is properly counterbalanced. Kaiser doesn't do this. All their patients are all at risk. They're not given this. I don't know if they're allowed to prescribe progesterone now, or if women have to pay extra. I couldn't afford it. When you do books, people think, oh, you're not rich. Yeah, I'm not Stephen King. Guess what? You write a book for 8 years, and doing nothing else. Guess what? You're like not like living in a castle, on the French Riviera. So once I did this, because the Midwest, we're like the saps of America. We're nice, like people are decent, you're raised to be considerate and everything. And, so after I do this, I'm community oriented. So I say, well, okay, now I've shown you all this science, you're going to give all women this healthy, safe drug, right? Put it on your formulary. And they're like, no. And so for me, what I realized, it would be like sitting across the street, sitting in a cafe, watching a woman about to walk into an open manhole and saying nothing. And so I saw all these women, this progression of women in my head, just being unknowingly harmed by doctors they're trusting to provide them with medical care. So I had to write this book because women deserve to know. And, this is egregious. My gynecologist who's gone from Kaiser, he was so wonderful. So he initially, I was mad at him because he didn't know the science on this. I didn't realize that they hadn't been trained. But what he would do, he would listen to me. This is very important when a doctor really listens to the patient, because this is called shared decision-making, where, they listen to you and take into account your values and who you are. So when I would go to my gynecologist, he said, you're getting an ultrasound vaginal, it's transvaginal ultrasound, see if you've got anything, the cancer, whatever, fibroids growing up there. And he's like, I know you want to see this. And so he turns the ultrasound toward me and I see my bowel. It's like moving like the 405 freeway. Amazing, like, holy crap. So that's the kind of thing where a doctor pays attention to who you are, that they do. And I saw that and thought like another bit of evidence of that. And so he would, when I presented him with the science that I'm sure he had never read, he looked at it and considered it and then would treat me according to the science. He wasn't like all these women, it's so funny. I had a male gynecologist who's so respectful and great and science-based. All these women are horrible, denying me care. Oh, and the worst, this thing where women have been treated in medical care, like it's all in your head. It's a really egregious thing. I'm still so angry about it. So I go back, she revises the treatment, the patient visit notes. And so I'm sure they all hate me in gynecology because I didn't do what I advise in my book of like how to partner with your doctor and approach them and everything. I was angry and afraid. And, I basically came off like an unlikable know-it-all in these appointments because I was so upset because I was threatened that she wouldn't give me my doctor who left. It was his idea to do the 2 patches, and I didn't get it in there before he left. So I had the problem of all these like medical muppets who are ignorant, deny their ignorance, and like deny me drugs. So she says in the patient notes, patient has labored speech. Of course I do. I have ADHD, lady. I'm really smart. I can't clap on the beat, but I'm really smart. I have a lot of thoughts that come all at once, and you're making me afraid. You're not going to give me a drug I need. You're calling it super physiologic. That is, incoherent and physiologically wrong. I'm not getting, I get half the estrogen I take or less. I want to take a double dose, so I get a single dose. This is like, we all understand this. You don't have to be a statistician or mathematician. Okay, I get half, give me whole. And it takes 2 for me. We don't treat based on like the mythical average patient. So she puts that in the beginning. And then she said, patients should continue with psychiatric care at the end. Okay, I'm not crazy. You're ignorant and I'm angry. And that's legitimate. You don't know the science and you claim to. I mean, it's really horrible, and so this is an old trope. I want to write an op-ed about this and name names because how dare you? I'm writing a piece now. I'm going to have a Substack. If anyone wants to subscribe, subscribers with an S at amyalkon.net. And the first piece is going to be on how women don't have what I call the Hollywood heart attack that you see on TV where a man clutches his arm and drops. There are these symptoms where you feel digestive disorders, like really tired, all these things that don't say heart attack to people. And so women go to the emergency room and trained medical personnel dismiss them. It's all in your head. You're stressed. And this happened to my beautiful friend, Dr. Helen Smith, forensic psychologist, where they said it was a psychological symptom and all this stuff. And then she had her doctor test her and they said, get to the hospital right away. And, she had a heart attack. Meanwhile, what's so funny about this is that Albert Ellis, who founded cognitive therapy, I met him because he was a fan of my column, because he thought I was highly rational and mirrored what he taught me. It influenced me. But I'd always been a person who valued reasoning and critical thinking, and it was incorporated into who I am always. And so it was just natural for me. And see how I corrected that? This is the benefit of being a 65-year-old, not 65, sorry, 61. Oh my God, I'm aging myself. That's all I need right now. Because as you age, aging is, it's associated with physical problems increasing. Hopefully my diet and exercise make that not so much a factor. But all of this is just really egregious that we all have to go through this.
So you're postmenopausal.
Oh no, I'm not. That word is a ridiculous misnaming. American researchers cause this stupid problem. So I'm in menopause. What happened was Americans and Europeans, they were doing this thing that's important, which is they were trying to standardize terminology. And so people in America and probably the rest of the world, they knew what this situation is, this phase, as menopause. It comes from meno and pausive from the Greek, and then it went to the French. And so basically it means the stop of the monthly bleeding. And so what happened was the Americans, sorry people, we sometimes really fuck up. Basically, they named it as one day. So the day, when you've had 12 months of that period, so it's a single day. So then what's the rest? So they had to tack on this thing, the post-menopause. And that means officially, wait, I have it here somewhere because I never remember what it is. Oh, here it is. Okay. So that means actually after the monthly bleeding stops. I mean, like really a single day in a woman's life. And so what I did is I used the term the public understands, which is menopause rather than post-menopause, because, Geraldine Pryor's friend, she's the UPC endocrinologist, she pointed out that, where is it here? That after menopause is an actual stage and it's death. So really incoherent. So yeah, menopause.
So menopause, so that's forever for women. See, being a bloke, obviously I don't understand. So what are you doing? You're in menopause, so you're taking estrogen, you're continuing to take estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also doing some
progesterone too. I take progesterone. And so if you have a uterus, you need to take it. That's what people say, but I don't agree with that. I think every woman needs to take it, even if you have had your uterus removed, hysterectomy, which is very bad to have if you don't need it. And doctors do needless hysterectomies. I cover this in the book. Really terrible. It leads to all this increased risk of cancer and all these other diseases, bones, dementia. It's beyond horrible. But so your progesterone isn't just protective for the endometrium, it protects your breasts. It is healthy and helpful for your cardiovascular system. It works with estrogen there. So, you want to take progesterone in menopause as well as in perimenopause. And I take the estrogen also. And then I also take steps because your body is just not as robust as you age. Your immune system isn't. So I basically went SWAT team on my diet on inflammation. Also because I had to get this corneal endothelium transplant. So I mentioned the endothelium. There's this one cell layer in your arteries and then in your eye also. It's basically the plumber of the eye. And thanks, Mom. I have a genetic disease. It's called Fuchs dystrophy, and I call it fuck you dystrophy. And basically this endothelium, the cells die. They look like hammered copper called guttata or guttate, which sounds too much like frittata, which is good if you don't overcook it, which annoys me to no end. And you go progressively blind unless you have a transplant. And I got donor tissue. Isn't this amazing? This is why I'm an organ donor. Somebody donated their corneas and I have donor tissue, aftermarket parts in one eye, and I'm getting the other eye done at the end of the month. So you need to be as healthy as possible when you're going through something like this so you can heal. And so what I did, this is so tragic. As a Jew who was denied bacon, my mother was the worst cook in the world. The food all tasted like particle board, early adopter of health food. So when I, in my adult life, discovered bacon and began eating 3 greasy strips a day, the thing that got me out of bed, I had to stop because it is high in omega-6 fatty acids. And you want to have a balance. I try to eat an ancestral level of omega-3, which is the healthier one, to omega-6. And omega-6 is in everything. And so, if you can eat a 1-to-1 ratio, that would have been an ancestral ratio. That's good. And so I cut out bacon, and then this is so tragic. Pork rinds. I'm a Jew from Appalachia. What can I say? That's in case anybody doesn't know, the mountains where people are missing teeth and they eat squirrels. And now people from Appalachia are going to hate me because they're also, I'm sure, nice whatever houses and suburbs or whatever there. But anyway, I stopped that and then I exercise and I'm very disciplined about it. And the carnivore diet, I eat herring, mackerel, hamburgers, because I'm poor, beef chuck, which is very fatty, and eggs. And I literally eat butter and I use ghee. This is clarified butter from India, very healthy. And these are the lowest inflammatory substances. Olive oil is usually fake. It's usually adulterated. And, people think that that's healthy oil. And so I don't use seed oils. And the reason seed oils are problematic is not what people say. Nina Teicholz, my friend who wrote Big Fat Surprise, she was the first one to expose this in her book, so you can read it there. But anyway, so I do this, and then I do slow speed weight training. And I like to show people, because I have these muscles that you wouldn't expect on me, because I feel like these muscles. I mean, I do 16 minutes a week. That's 16. I like to ask people, how many hours do you think I work out a day? 3. Okay, I'm not going to do manual labor with iron bars. First of all, I'm not going to a gym in LA to wear Lululemon and they sneer at me because I'm physically uncoordinated. It comes with ADHD. I took a yoga class once and they say I have to do something, or a doctor says, raise your right hand, and I have to think about it. Anyway, those 2 things, these are the 2 things. There's a fork in the road basically at menopause where you can protect your cardiovascular health and your overall health. And inflammation and insulin resistance and high blood pressure and high blood sugar, these are the things you need to stop. And these are the causes of heart disease and diabetes and what's called inflammaging, which is a broken immune response. Your pancreas, when you eat starch or sugar in your diet, a carbohydrate, and it doesn't matter if it's whole wheat bread. This is a big misconception. Oh, I eat healthy whole grains. No, whole grains are not healthy, nor are starchy vegetables, nor is apple juice. So you eat these and they raise your blood sugar. And so your pancreas has to pump out insulin to bring down your blood sugar. And so this keeps going on and on and on. And eventually it gets tired and you have a broken insulin response. You have insulin resistance. You have high blood sugar. And so if you eat a carnivore diet like this, you keep your insulin low, I have very low insulin, normal blood sugar, and, I'm not having these spikes. And so because of this, I have low inflammation. This is how you be healthy throughout your lifespan. And the exercise is part of it, doing this weight training where you lift 5 seconds up and 5 seconds down very slowly with weight that's heavy for you to the point you can only do about 10 reps. And then when you can no longer do another with good form, and I lay out how to do this in the book, that's muscle failure. And you've created this tension that helps build muscle, healthy, strong, quality muscle, not this whole bone density thing. Oh, and I should say, what you do for muscle, you do for bone. So you do something to your muscles and it transmits to your bones. And bones and muscle are metabolically active. If you're working them, you're helping yourself not have insulin resistance, not have high blood sugar. You're helping your mitochondria, which power us. Very important to keep healthy mitochondria. And so that was the thing that happened where I went SWAT team on my diet, had this transplant, and I thought, okay, young lady, cut the crap here. And I just decided one morning, no more bacon. And this might gross people out, but it's very good. I eat smoked herring. So I put smoked herring in a bowl. I put butter on it, put it in the microwave with there's this stuff called Old Bay we have in America. I'm really a culinary heathen. but I eat a lot of fat and everything's delicious. And then, so that was my first day of no bacon. And I still have 2 big jars of pork rinds. I hid them, so I can't see them and eat them because I'm a pig. So last night they had chocolate chip cookies in my meetup. I'm like, yeah, no. And I'll eat like once every 3 months or so. If I go to a party, I do this like analysis, the deep analysis. Look at the chocolate chip cookies. Wait, were these made by a vegan with that disgusting crap, like where it's not butter and eggs and things? Or are these like classic chocolate chip cookies with sugar and chocolate chips and everything? And then I'll analyze which one is the great one to eat, like the white chocolate, the dark chocolate. And then I'll eat 3 because I'm a pig. So I don't have any ice cream at home. You have to foster good habits in whatever way you need to do that, because I will have my snout in that vat of ice cream and it'll be gone like very quickly.
Yep, I'm the same. Worst thing, I'm sort of at the end of a long road from the town, and round the corner, I happen to have a beautiful gelati shop. He makes it out of beautiful milk, very little sugar, but he's round the corner.
That's hard.
And I'm at the end of a long road from the shopping centre, which is up there. We've got a little cafe and him and a hairdresser and a dog groomer and it's like in the middle of nowhere. But you're right. I'll go around there and I'll eat the whole tub. So, yeah, that's a problem. And I think it's a man thing. But so what you've been saying is for women, when this starts, you need to take, what we call agency of your health. Read this book because it's obviously very important because women make up 50% of the population. And if they're not,
presumably,
and if they're not getting the help or they don't understand, they need to, don't they? But not every woman's going to read this book.
Well, okay, tell your friends because
Yeah.
I just want this information. Actually, I say this horrible thing as an author who I'm really poor from writing this. Oh, review my book too, please, everybody. I really need reviews and spread the word. But I actually told people, okay, if you can't afford it, you can steal it. But I said, I prefer you get it out of the library because I also need to earn back my advance. So it'd be better if you bought it. It's like $9.99 as an ebook, please. But spread the word. And I want people to do that because this is egregious. And I'm like this. I'm really a weirdo. So having been used to this all my life, I will, I'll talk to somebody, I basically don't go out that much. I go to my meetup group and then I go to Kaiser and there are many people there who are Black. And so I'll tell them, about the stats, the difference in heart disease stats, because these need to be spread around, and if you look on sites, there's a Scripps Health. This is a medical provider in the US. They have a Scripps Health site for Black women, like, hey, Black women, take charge of your cardiology. Do you think they tell them the specific standards for Black women? Like, look, you could have heart disease. No, absolutely not. It's so egregious. And then another thing that I do in this book, and that because I'm losing my voice for some reason, as an advice columnist for 25 years, I was syndicated to many papers, and they all went out of business. I had to stop. But, I would look at the advice from my weekly column and say, okay, asshole, is anybody going to do this? Is anybody going to keep doing this? And if the answer wasn't yes, well, how disrespectful. You don't deserve to be read. Go back to the drawing board. And so it always makes sure that I put out something doable. And this book also, this is doable stuff by mere mortals. I'm not going to go to a gym. But what I have a little weight graveyard in my living room, and you don't have to do a ton of this weight work. Now, if you have bone issues, then it's different. You need to do more. I have a friend who has a 23% loss in her spine, which is really bad. But the whole bone density thing, that's another lie that I get into in the book, like that this is what matters. So I got into this a little bit, how the tissue it's like old tissue that's being hung on to. It's not, the density is not good. Here's some old crap that we've, hung on to thanks to these drugs, not bone quality, and so those are things that you need to take charge of. And to go to your doctor and be able to ask for this care, like realistically. And that's why I give you the fail safes in the book. Sorry, I rambled a little bit. But this is the thing of where this is doable advice. It's the eating and the exercise is doable. I describe myself as a lazy, hedonistic pig. And so I don't cook. I write. If I write something, people read it and they might read it again. If I eat, it's gone. So I do, like, everything I make is like 2 steps, like flip, meat, flip. Or I make this now because salmon's really expensive. There's some kind of salmon disease. So I need to not spend a lot of money. The hamburger I ate is like the next best thing to dog food. It comes in a big roll, but that's still better than eating carbs. To eat that crappy meat, it's like crappy compared to, like, it's not like grass fed and the monks like sung to them while they were grazing, or whatever, and so doing this, like being frugal, I make this like soup out of broth. I put in the herring in tins and the mackerel's in a can. It's so inelegant. It's like 15 ounces of like chicken of the sea, chub mackerel. Dump in 2 cans, the broth. I put in butter and what else? Heavy whipping cream, and then all these like the base spices and pepper and salt, and then some curry and ginger, just because I had those there, and like that might be good. And it's delicious. I mix it with an immersion blender really fast. So that takes me like 5 minutes to all throw together. And then I put it in jars and I just pour it in a soup thing and then like heat it in the microwave, like a little like mug. So that's like lunch. And the mackerel's like $2.50 a can. So it's not like salmon, which is now like $10 for the discounted kind at Amazon Fresh. That's where I get my groceries from because they deliver them. And so you have to be creative like this. The most important thing though is to protect your health throughout your lifespan by doing this and being disciplined about exercise. And then getting, for example, another thing is getting first morning light in your retinas. This helps circadian rhythm. It helps to prevent depression or make it ease depression. And then eating this kind of diet where you're eating, it's called ketogenic, meaning you're in ketosis, where you're burning fat for fuel instead of sugar. This is very helpful for mental health. And Georgia Eade, who is a friend and colleague, she has a book on that now. That's wonderful. She's a psychiatrist. And so I, support all these people basically saving lives through their books and work. It's vitally important. Marion DeMasi, by the way, is down there, I think. She's one who is railing against statins and all the, she's a source of truth. Zoe Harcum also, the 2 of them, I forget which one is which sometimes, but they're both, really good. And, we need to have people who are like me, like doing these books in every area of medicine. Hematology, I'm not that swift on hematology, that's blood. I can look things up and understand them. I know what white blood cells are and everything, what all the names are in a CBC, a complete blood count. But I don't read the science in that area. And then cardiology, if you're having like an infarction, you need a stent or something, like, don't ask me. I'm not going to do it on my kitchen floor. Kitchen floor appendectomy is my joke.
Now, people can't see you because this is an audio, but looking at you, you're lean, you look strong, and for a 61-year-old, you look young.
Oh, sorry, I forgot when I said look at my muscles. I want to say, but women don't, since we don't have high testosterone, when he says muscular, we get toned. I don't have like, Hercules muscles. They look nice.
It's lean. You don't have what we call the bingo arms, where
the high Helen, we call them here, where you can like go, like you wave your arm and there's this flopping flesh.
Yes, no, you don't have that at 61. So there you go. So this is an indication. So Amy, we're probably coming to the end there. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or should we say where to find the book and where to find you?
Oh, I'll tell you those things. Okay, so if you want to I'm going to have a Substack where I answer questions and you can ask me questions, and I'm going to put it out it might be by the end of this month. It's subscribers at amyalkon.net. to be on the list for that. It's free. And then my book, Amazon here in America, I'm probably there too.
Yeah, you are.
And I have a wonderful audiobook. If you're not a reader, this is a misconception. People are like, oh, if you don't read, you're not smart. No, that's not true. Actually, people just don't like long form reading. That's okay. Carrington McDuffie, the singer, she's stellar. She does the voiceover for my book. She's great. So ebook, paperback. I recommend getting the paperback because it's like beautifully done. And then what else? It's really important, start eating and exercising this way, do one at a time. You don't want to make 2 changes at once because you tend to be overwhelmed. So start with your diet. And if you're going to eat low carb, I'm sure I include this in the book, eat salted chicken broth at first because you need that. Keep your electrolytes normal. And then commit to, here's what my friend Mary Dan Eads, who's one of the doctors, actually referenced. I respect her and Mike Eads very much. They're 2 doctors who practiced evidence-based medicine. They're retired now, but the low carb stuff, they're good on that. But she said she would tell her patients when they were in Arkansas, look, will you do this for 2 weeks? Try this low carb thing, be disciplined for 2 weeks. Can you do that? And so if you give yourself some kind of span like that, that's helpful because you can do that for 2 weeks and then you start to feel so good, and it's so good for your health. And then once you begin a habit like that and you're doing it diligently, it makes it easier to continue.
That's fantastic. You're incredibly knowledgeable. You're sharing that knowledge, and I'm hoping that people will listen to this, buy the book, which I think is going to be important to get.
Oh, I should say the name of the book. I think I forgot. Going Menopostal, What You and Your Doctor Need to Know About the Real Science of Menopause and Perimenopause. I'm Amy Alkon, Alkon. So you can find that. And please buy it and review it. And please spread the word about all this stuff in the book because it's really important women have this. We deserve to have evidence-based medical care, however we can get it.
And you're making that happen. Thank you, Amy, for joining me.
Thank you.
Before we close, a brief but important note. The information shared in this episode is for educational and informational purposes only. Amy Alkon is an investigative science writer, not a medical doctor, and the views expressed are her own based on her extensive research. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult with your own qualified healthcare provider before making any decisions about your health, diet, or treatment plan. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard in this episode. That's all for today's Wisepreneurs podcast. Age is no barrier when you're a wisepreneur crafting a purpose-driven career. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Visit wisepreneurs.com.au to join my newsletter for exclusive strategies and ideas, and connect with me on LinkedIn for more insights. I'm Nigel Rawlins, and I'll see you next time to keep building your future with impact.